Welcome to the Bad Marketing Podcast, and in this episode is a very special one because we have our special guest, Colin Wayne, who came in and we talk about things across the gamut here, for everything from his origin story, from fitness model to steel manufacturer, home decor company, ranking #1 in Alabama and the fastest growing company, Inc. 500, to #4 in the country, all the way to things of like what matters in life. What do you do when entrepreneurship gets hard? It's a great episode packed full of details all across the scene. If you're an entrepreneur, you're someone building a business, this is one to pay attention to. So let's dive right in. All right, what's up, Colin? Good to see you here, dude.
Good to see you, Ash.
It's been a minute since we've connected in person for a while, where if we look back like a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were talking every day. So it's good to finally see you, man.
Yeah, you too. Other than, our couple gym sessions, which you've gotten absolutely swole over the past year and a half. So proud of you on that journey.
Well, thanks, dude. I thought it was a really cool. You came into town. It was like, all right, we got the studio here. We might as well make use of it. And more than everything, it's like so much. Like I think we've been around each other in like the entrepreneurial journey now for maybe 4 years. 4 years,
4 or
now?
5 years. Yeah, feels like a long time an entrepreneur. It's
right.
like, I believe it's like cat years, like you
or
dog years or whatever.
Sure. In online, definitely. Like we're ancient at this point, so we're lifelong friends. But I thought it would be really cool to like, okay, we're back together. Let's break down a little bit more in an official sense, because I mean, when we first met, I was just starting my agency, and so didn't have office, didn't have studio, didn't have anything, and so. I kind of want to take the opportunity to break down a little bit of your origin story. Yeah. I know you've had to share it a lot throughout your career, but I guess first off, you weren't always a business owner. It's kind of almost something you fell into.
Yep.
So tell us like where you started, and let's kind of just take this journey step by step, because I know a lot of people don't know the step-by-step journey throughout your career.
Yeah, well, just like bad marketing, right? Bad, bold and disruptive. It's kind of like 13 years ago when I started on social media, influencers weren't what they are today.
Yeah.
And so the disruptive part of it is leveraging social media as a growth tool and to leverage that to get pretty much anything you wanted. So back in the day, I started to grow Facebook significantly and started to kind of cross-channel those into different ones. But what a lot of people don't realize is not only growing my personal brand, but because I was in the fitness industry in that community, I started to grow 3 or 4 other pages that were similar and grew those to millions of followers as well. And so leveraging, like I'd say 10 years ago, share for shares were really big. They obviously don't work now, but I would have other people share and promote my content, and then I could cross-channel that on these other pages like bodybuilding tips and tricks and fitness recipes. It's got like 1.2 million. Bodybuilding tips and tricks, it's got like 2.7 million. So as I'm scaling my content individually for my brand, the distribution network becomes almost limitless, because I can leverage them and then say, hey, Sergi Constance or Jocko DeBurn or some of these other guys, like, hey, we're going to build kind of a network of, I'm going to share your content, you redistribute mine, and vice versa. And you're building a community all within the same kind of genre.
Yeah.
So it serves my community as well. And, it transpired from kind of the influencer, if you will, into being an entrepreneur, because I looked at it and kind of a weird analysis of like, what happens if I get into a car accident and mess my face up? That's scary, man. And at that time, I had my son, didn't have my girls at this point. And I've got 3 kids for context. One's 13. I'm a teenager dad now. Makes me feel
wild.
Yeah, it's wild. And then my oldest daughter is 7, about to be 8 in November, and youngest is 5. And so it really got me kind of like trying to figure out what would happen if my Facebook shut down or Instagram or something like that. And I didn't like not having that type of control.
Yeah. And
I also knew that making $30,000 to $40,000 a month ongoing, what does that look like? Can it continue to compound? And what made me kind of think about starting my own company was, I guess there's twofold. One is inner peace. I didn't feel like I was doing enough, and I felt like there was more that I could contribute, besides just, a nice house and buying cars and buying whatever you wanted. I mean, I was in my mid-20s at this point, and really looking at it from what can I do to control my destiny? And I felt like if companies can continue to pay me this amount of money, how much am I making them? Right. And and if they continue to renew, couldn't I do the same thing? And so I just bet on myself 100%. And I felt confident in my abilities. We didn't do a lot of, I didn't do any paid advertising at that point. And it really wasn't that big. It was more of organic growth, and influencers were moving significant impressions and viewership. So that was kind of a catalyst into starting my first company, Redline Steel, which was a manufacturing wall art home decor company that obviously we worked with for several years.
So, going back here a little bit, so you got into fitness. That was kind of like your first, let's say, career that you really started venturing in, finding a lot of success. Why did you get into fitness? What caused you to that? Besides obviously you're tall, dark, handsome here, but like what made you go into fitness?
Well, I was in the military. And so, that plays a significant role, just being in the military in general. But I looked up to Greg Plitt. He was a fitness model icon out in California. We actually, I was in a documentary that's on Netflix called The Perfect Physique. And so we were room partners. So it was an absolute, like, incredible time to get to know who I looked up to. But the fitness side, it was just passionate. And, that was another thing, is like, it became where my passion became almost like, I have to maintain this physique year round. And you're held at such a high standard where people want you to have a shredded six pack all the time. And man, I enjoy pizza. I enjoy ice cream. I enjoy going out, and I don't want to just be shredded year round, even though it looks good, you feel good. And I want to be just a normal guy too. So it became kind of like, I didn't want to be tied down because of it. And I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it. There's a big difference in having to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the freedoms that you see. And it's the same with like being an entrepreneur. If somebody's doing something for long periods of time, there's always things that, you'll want to do. But when it turns into, I have to do it more commonly than I want to, you need to look at some adjustments and shifts.
Yeah, I've seen that over and over again for a lot of entrepreneurs, like not even just fitness, but almost anything, right? Like they get really good at a hobby or a passion, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I think maybe I could do this full time. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years down the line, it's like, I don't even like doing this thing anymore. That used to bring me so much life.
So true. Yeah. It forms resentment, if you will, because what was once a hobby and you did it as passion now turned into, I've got to do this and maintain. And nobody holds higher standards than probably yourself. When you look in the mirror, do you love what you see, or are you, constantly critiquing yourself? Because that's what we all naturally do, I feel like. And people will see significant changes outwardly before we see it ourselves. And so, when I don't know, man, it just, you put yourself at such a high standard that, or at least as high achievers, to be a big performer, you've got to constantly push boundaries.
Yeah.
And you're not happy if you're not.
Yeah.
And so kind of fitness modeling, landed over 50 magazine covers. And it was me cold outreaching. And here's my secret. Like, a lot of people don't know this exact tip, and it would still work today. And it's very similar to what Gary Vee says. Give, jab, 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 right hook. Give, take. I provided value to these publications, and I would establish a rapport with editors and photographers. And, I would do cold outreach, and I would put together kind of a script. And I'm not a copywriter. I'm more of direct response, like, buy my shit. And here's the reason why. But I would say, like, we'll do a 3-post rollout. I typically would charge, let's say, $5,000 a post. So it's $15,000 in value. So I'm putting a number to that value. And I won't charge the publication a talent fee to be on the cover. And in addition to that, if the photographer wants to charge a copyright fee, I'll pay that photographer. So inadvertently, they're working with me for free, and I'm making it easy, and I'm showing them the vision of this is what it can look like so free distribution, free talent, no expense for the photography usage. And then I'm putting a true value that they can bring back to their leadership. And that's why I was able to land 2 to 3 magazine covers every single month from some publication around the world.
Yeah. Okay. So we get through the fitness. You get through and you're like, okay, I got to figure out something better. There's too much risk here. I don't really love it so much anymore. You move into a steel metal signs home decor company.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, I would never have thought, let me go sell home decor steel signs as my next venture.
It fell in my lap, man. I was doing consulting and advisory work because I love to just see other people's problems and see if I can make an impact. And it's always been fun for me to just kind of look at the hierarchy, look at the overall business strategy, look at competitor analysis, look at areas of opportunity that they're missing out on with simple levers that we can kind of change or reposition. And so I was doing consulting with a local company, and they weren't big, but it really opened my eyes to how big of a market share it is. And, it was like, consider driving around a neighborhood and you see people's monograms, like their last name on their front door. And you think back in 2015 time period, and that was almost 10 years ago, where are they getting these from? And so I went and looked at like keyword search terms and everything's changed on the paid advertising side. So there's a lot more tools that's accessible then, and now Chrome extensions that you can make things a hell of a lot easier. But there was zero advertising for it. And I was looking up different search term volumes of like, family name, monogram, family wall art, and zero paid advertising on the Google side. And they didn't have like see transparency, Facebook ads. You can go and see all that stuff. But I just saw it as a huge market opportunity with massive scale. And my demographic, primarily in the US and women, it kind of already somewhat aligned. And, the paid advertising side really was just fuel that ignited the growth that we saw.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so that's a perfect transition because your company grew very, very fast. So for the people listening, describe a little bit about what Redline Steel was, what did it really grow to, give people an idea of what it was.
So, man, it was everything within one umbrella. So the manufacturing, the fabrication, it was wall art that you put on in your house or around your house on the outside, whether it's customized or non-customized. And then we started to transition into like canvas and vinyls and other things, but predominantly metal wall art. And we scaled from 5,000 square feet into 110,000 square feet within about 2.5 years. And so 3 different buildings at that point. And millions of dollars in capital infrastructure went into building kind of how can we logistically keep up with the output because of the incoming orders. And so it's a constant balance. So more than most brands, balancing supply chain with the manufacturing aspect, fulfillment, distribution, and then the e-commerce, and then making sure your your market expense ratio is where it needs to be profitable. There was always moving parts. And so significant growth that we saw for several years. We went all the way to the White House, represented Alabama for Made in America Week in 2019. Actually got a selfie with President Trump, which was awesome. And I would go back today, even with, Sleepy Joe, if he wanted to bring this back to the White House, which he's not, obviously. I would absolutely, because it's an honor as an entrepreneur to be invited to that level, no matter who's in office. And I think people lose sight of it's red versus blue. It's black versus white, and it's not that, man. There's so much divide in this nation. It's disheartening. I think there's just a level of respect that's just lacking in a lot of areas. But I'm proud of the growth. If I could go back, I wouldn't change anything. I've learned a ton from it. And really, when you think about success over failure, you always learn from failures a hell of a lot faster and more. And you take away from what didn't work versus what did work. And so this will just be a catalyst for what's in store for the future.
Yeah. So this kind of like brings us up to where you and I ultimately met. Because at this point, when we met, how far along was the business?
We were, let's see, when did you start Heman? What year?
2020.
2020. So it was, right before
Just
COVID.
Right before
so
COVID,
we were 4.5 years old. We were probably around a $40 million company at that point.
Okay. Yeah. Because one of the things that was super interesting when we first met, so, the story, I guess if we want to go into the story first of how we met, I ultimately was working at another company, Traffic and Funnels, was transitioning out, made a post on Facebook about it. And I don't know how we were connected somehow. Maybe we'd
I reached out to you.
And you saw my post and you reached out. I forget what you said. You said something along the lines of like, I normally don't reach out to people
and I don't
normally read posts, but I actually read your post and that made me reach out. There's something interesting here. You should come down. Right.
Yeah. So I'd love to highlight on that because I think that's important because for context, like I've got millions of followers and I do get a lot of and there's a lot of distractions. So I was always focused in one area, but something like about your copywriting style, and like I somehow saw your ads multiple times. They kept popping up everywhere, and it was you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw a post that you wrote, and it was, you're a great copywriter. And so it got my attention, read the whole thing. And usually it's like most people, they're distracted. They read the first two,
Right.
3 sentences, they move on, but read the whole thing. And I love that you were taking a leap of faith, and like, just like a true entrepreneur, like, I'll put that weight on myself, and I'm willing to bet on me. And I'd embrace that any day over a company or over another marketing agency that's kind of proven.
Right.
I'd rather work with those that are hungry and ambitious. And I felt that energy within your post. So even though it was just a caption, it was a transferency of energy that made me want to reach out to you. And so I know I reached out, and then you came down like a week later.
Yeah.
And was one of your first clients, and
Yeah.
honored by that, because we had a hell of a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember coming down and instantly like driving into the Redline Steel area. It's like Huntsville, Alabama. There's really nothing around. And then all of a sudden there's just this massive warehouse that I pull into. And I remember coming in, and when we started marketing, because we started talking about marketing, which was almost right off the bat. I think one of the most interesting things for me was just seeing how advanced you were as a marketer. Meanwhile, running this company, doing manufacturing, buying steel, covering the logistics of shipping and handling. And also you were the guy coming up with new designs, new promotions, engaging with the community. It was wild to me of how advanced of a marketer you were. Where did that come from? Because I don't see that from military or fitness model.
Yeah.
How did you develop your skills as a marketer?
That's a good point, because I don't read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I like to look at, I guess, what's differentiating factors, like, for instance, BIMI records, business identification messaging indicators. Like, if I'm looking at my email and I see Google's logo, but I see everybody else's initials, why do they have theirs displayed, but I don't? And so, like, finding patterns, or like now Meta AI's Sphere, I brought this up back in 2022, how they were going to connect directly with Wikipedia and then Wiki Commons to end up basically triangulating search term volume, so that as people are looking for someone like Megan Fox, who we collaborated in the past, how can I show up on newsfeed as other people that, and so turning search into social. I think curiosity, I guess, to answer your question, because it's not like it's self-taught, but it's not like, and then I see something that works or doesn't work, and I pivot quick. And I think passion over anything. And also, like, just like most entrepreneurs or people that are ambitious and high achievers, you thrive under pressure. And I put myself under so much pressure that I had no choice but to succeed. And so I had to keep pushing. I had to keep giving it 100% every single day, because there was no plan B. It's burn the boats. I'm all in, and I'm ready to die over this. And sink or swim mentality.
The when you study people, big entrepreneurs, whether it's Steve Jobs or Walt Disney, there's often this term that keeps surfacing up again when describing those people. It's sadistic determination. And you're very much one of those people that clearly has this sadistic determination. Like, working together was definitely not an easy thing to do at times. But you are definitely one of those people that is, when you're curious about something, it doesn't seem like you're able to turn off or focus on anything else until you figured it out. Tell me about some times where that has maybe gone too far.
Yeah, you fixate on it, man. It's I'm preparing to file a lawsuit against somebody, and I can't really go into the details or specifics, but you become fixated on it, and where to a point like you can't sleep, and it's like you can't control variables outside of it. And I think because internally, when certain things happen and you have no control over it, it's tough to let go. It's tough to accept what it is. When you, especially like not knowing exactly what the issue is, and then come to find out that you had no control over it to begin with. It was outside of your control. And what's the illusion of what should be reality isn't actually what it is. I'll sound like a madman, and it is kind of sadistic behavior, because you're fixated on something that is there and you believe it and you know that it's there, but it's not visible. And that's kind of like having a vision.
Yeah.
You're chasing it out, giving it 100%. But in this case, it's almost like it's obsessive, and it becomes where you want to know what, why, how, who did it, when it happened, and so many variables to it that when you take a step back, it's kind of like, why does it matter?
Right.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
Can't change anything about it now. What does it really matter? Who's the individual that did certain things and where do they live? And like certain crazy like things, your mind just starts to go in so many different directions. I'm not gonna,
So beyond this obsessiveness over, when you're curious, you're always finding something else that you want to figure out or learn or break apart just to see how it was put together. Beyond that, what do you feel like has been some of your other traits that you're like, these things, whether people think they're good or bad, is definitely why I am where I am?
I think that it's the mentality that it's bigger than me. Before having kids, it's easy to be selfish. And then after having, now I've got 3 children, your why becomes so much bigger. And my why was also kind of sparked based on like my employees and their kids. And I was willing to do anything that I could to be a provider for them and to ultimately be there. So I think that from kind of a characteristic standpoint, like not giving up and more like kind of a special operations or mindset that I'm going to do anything possible that it takes to get the job done and accomplished. And that's kind of that sink or swim mentality that, we'll burn the boats all in. This is what we're going to do. This is the path forward.
Yeah.
I call it the 3Ds. So distance, direction, and distractions, knowing what it's going to take, not distracted by opportunities. And then you kind of know your true north. And if it's kind of like what I've heard the vision for bad marketing, where you're building what was originally the intent to sell within 5 years. Now it's kind of transitioned from what I've watched some of your reels into it being a catalyst to work with other brands so that this is an incubator and that you can turn some of the brightest marketers and copywriters and people that are true experts. And this is fuel that ignites so much more. And that is like, and because that being the true compass, like Bill Gates is known for Microsoft, even though he's involved with so many other brands, that was his catalyst, not just for cash flow, but he was sole focused on that. And people get distracted by so many different things. And unless they're passionate about it 100%, there's no reason your why and your time allocated to it, you'll never go really far. And so until you get to a certain point, or if it aligns 100% with your true north, then you can go that distance and the direction that you're going to travel based on it.
So this is going to be kind of like a left field curveball. And it's okay if we don't want to do this because we can cut this part out. But actually, I feel like when we met, we very much aligned on personality, drive, like how we thought about business. But also over the last 2 years, both of us have gone through massive life changes. So I'm curious actually if you're discovering or on a similar path here. When I started my business, or really since I was maybe like 18 or so, I don't think I actually ever operated in a place that I thought I deserved to be happy. I operated out of a place of responsibility or calling, or this is what I'm designed to do. I'm designed to work like this because no one else can, or focus like this because no one else can. And my effort and ambition of working hard every day was not really for my life. It was either for what I felt like I was supposed to do or for other people. I think I see that a lot in you, but I'm curious to now, after going through so much life history, are you getting to a place where you feel like you actually deserve to be happy?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's soul searching, is the craziest. It's so extremely structured. I used to have haircuts every Tuesday at 8 a.m. And so I had a barber. She came in and she would do my hair and do some of my teams. But she asked me a very simple question. And it was, Colin, besides working out and work and spending time with family, what do you enjoy doing? And when I couldn't figure out what the hell that was, and I just drew a blank, but I was searching. And it sparked something internally that I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what that happiness or true feeling of like, what do I enjoy doing besides those core things, which are just general, like spending time with family. Who doesn't love doing that? If you're into fitness, who doesn't love working out? And so those are just basic things, but I was obsessive into just those. And so I didn't know. And so I had to soul search into what do I enjoy doing? And so, massive life changes from divorce, selling my house, near bankruptcy, still fighting tooth and nail to stay out of that. And then, pursuing multiple lawsuits, whether it's offensively or defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5 or 6 different suits that I was up against, and some of those have closed. Some of those I was awarded millions of dollars, and some of those are soon to take place. But all that to say, I didn't identify with what I truly enjoyed because I surrounded my life with what I thought was intentional purpose, and I loved what I did until I didn't. And then I was too late, and I couldn't let go of. I was in too deep, if you will.
Yeah.
Where something that controlled you, I had at one point 150,000 square feet and 140 or so employees. That's a lot of responsibility. No private equity, no VCs, just me bootstrapping and carrying out vision. And so until I really looked at things, and then I lost everything, man. Like I lost everything. The wife who I loved, we were together almost 10 years. 2 beautiful girls. It was a surprise divorce. I had no clue that it was going to happen. And then she moved directly in with somebody that I knew even longer than her. Had no clue that was going to happen. And some people are like, how do you not know that that's what's going on underneath your own? Man, I worked so much. And it wasn't, looking back now, I would have changed a lot of stuff because time is a commodity that we do not have and we don't appreciate enough. But I wish that I would have been more cognizant and aware because I was trying to fix the company that ultimately ended up shutting down or closing down operations. We're still legally a company, and then losing it all. And so looking back at it now, it's kind of like I now appreciate so much more time value with people that I love, going fishing, going on. Me and my son every year now for the past 3 years have done on excursions, and we'll go a week. And we know kind of like an end destination, but we'll stop along the way, and we don't have like an exact roadmap of when it's going to happen. We'll hit 4 or 5 different states. Like we just got back we were supposed to go to Galveston, Texas. The hurricane hit, so we hard pivoted over to Mississippi at Biloxi, and we went shark fishing. Carson caught his first shark. So it's an incredible journey. And that's why I'm saying I wouldn't change anything because it's made me ultimately who I am. And I appreciate soul searching deeper. And when you lose everything, it's like you've won because you can let go and you can rebuild with a new mindset.
Yeah.
Because if I would have, continued to scale the way we were sold, I would have been fixated on the next thing because it's an obsession. Yeah. And you become like obsessed with this growth mindset, and I would have had multiple companies and they probably would have been pretty successful, but to what extent? All of that doesn't matter. Yeah. Like my kids just wanted my time. Yeah. And I was trying to do it for them, but it wasn't, they don't see it that way. Yeah. And I wouldn't understand it if tables were turned. I didn't spend a lot of time with my father growing up. He was an entrepreneur, and so I think it is just it's a blessing in disguise, and I wouldn't trade it. And as soon as I closed down operations at my company, it was a huge relief, and something that I didn't expect because I was so fixated on it. Once I could let go, and you could take that deep breath, and the weight was lifted. Because I knew I gave 100%, man. And I did everything humanly possible to keep the lights on and to fight for my customer. We had so many loyal Redline elite customers and VIP members and my employees and their family. And I fought fucking hard, bro, for them. And but once I gave, I can live with that because I did everything that I could. But if I would have just threw in the towel like most people would have, because I couldn't deal with the stress, the anxiety, while dealing with the divorce, while dealing with lawsuits on other things, and it becomes so much that it's tough to just exist, and you're just there, you're coexistent. So it was a sigh of relief, and now, that was March of 23, so it's been a little bit of time. Huge changes, especially mentally. I had to move in with my mom, mid-30s, man. Here I am, 3 kids living with my mom, but we rekindled our relationship, and we're closer than ever. And so for that, I'm very grateful. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know in the beginning of Heman, we grew really fast too. And I think it was about a year in, maybe a year and a half in, that I really changed the way I ran the business as like a leader. Because I would tell people that, like, in the beginning, I built a company I knew how to build, but then I had to ask myself, like, what company did I want to build? But what's funny is that, over the last year and a half, I think I realized that it was like, I built the Ashton I knew how to build, but what Ashton did I actually want to build? And I had to do the same thing for myself personally because of it. When, I kind of told people, like, for the first like 4 years of business, I didn't know anything except winning. Like, it seemed like everything I touched turned to gold. Everything worked. It was going well. And my identity became winning at whatever cost, whatever it took. That's just what we did. And then all of a sudden, when you go through a year and a half of just zero winning, just punched in the face over and over and over again, new problems arising all the time, you forget who you are.
So true. Because
now all of a sudden you're not winning, and you're like, I don't even know what my identity is. And that was the moment for me of like, what do I actually want to become? What do I actually wish I was like? And what was really cool, and maybe for you now too, is like, I think over the last year, I've started to see actually a lot of things in my personality come back that was like, I remembered from childhood, like a personality style or things I like to do that had started coming back. And I was like, I forgot about that side. And it's really starts to become your true self. It's very interesting.
It is, man. Yeah. And it is just that entire full circle of identity. And, I think you brought up a really good point, because just for context, I mean, we were getting massive scale. I mean, we were spending $50,000, $60,000 in a day on Facebook ads at, $1.50 cost per purchase, and like ridiculous. 50 cents or 30 cents cost per lead acquisition. So incredible scale. We did 1 million orders in one physical year, which is nuts.
Yeah.
And when all of that changed like a light switch because of this one thing on this one e-commerce platform, and we fixated on, why is that happening? How can we not even get scale on something we knew was proven? You start to, over time, and it does take time, because first I was like, hell no, something's wrong, because 2 p.m. we would know with pretty much certainty where we're going to end up by the end of the day. And that was a light switch that took place.
Yeah.
And until Facebook data scientists came in and conducted an audit on our pixel and our domain and what was actually happening, and gave us a true source of truth, not what you see on a screen where I sound like a crazy person. Then you start to try to figure out like your self-worth, if you will, or like you question what you can actually do as a marketer, because you're used to winning, and we were used to getting massive scale and significant growth year over year over year. I mean, we were number 1 in the state of Alabama, Inc. 500, number 4 in the entire United States for manufacturing. And so like it was wild, but that identity, you question yourself and over things that you may or may not can even control. And there's nothing worse than like when it messes with your mind and your self-confidence, to feel like I know what I'm doing, but I don't know why the result is this. Why is this happening? And so that's been, and you know what, I could say this with certainty, working with Ashton and Isaac and Rob and some of the key players at Heman at the time, Bad Marketing Now, y'all stuck through it with us like a champ and did everything possible, that we could do. And it's more than any other agency. And we tested different agencies while simultaneously working with y'all. And we never gave up, and we all just had, well, whatever if this other firm can come in here and shed light on something that we're missing, because maybe we are missing because we're so close to it.
Yeah.
And they'd come up with less results than what we were getting. And so it was definitely a challenging, but I could definitely relate to that because self-confidence is everything. And when you're losing, and now I was on a losing streak, just back to back to back to back, until I could like let go of it. And, everything's kind of shifted. And so I just have a newfound look on even things, man. You came down, you were part of my mastermind for about 2 years. And, I had Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all this stuff, 9,000 square foot home. And it's all just stuff.
Yeah.
None of it matters.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you know how many times the Ferrari was like, I drove it once every 2 months or something. It just sat in the garage because I didn't care about that stuff. It was exciting for driving it, home.
Yeah.
That was basically it. And every, sunny outside, I'm gonna get in there, but it's uncomfortable to drive. Much rather have the Rolls Royce. But all that to say, things are just things.
Yeah.
But who you love and you care and you cherish, you can't take that away.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so important that, kind of clout chasing is once you've lost everything and rebuilding, you identify with what really matters.
Yeah.
And
Why do you think that exists, right? Because that is a very much entrepreneur condition.
Yeah.
You look at any entrepreneur that really comes in, and most of the time it's people who come from nothing at some point. And they typically they have that grit and they have that hard work, but you give them a long enough time horizon and a success, it always comes back to that answer. It's it's just stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Why do you think we continue? Because we hear this all the time, even before we made it. You hear it from successful people. It's just stuff. Don't worry about it. Relationships matter more.
Yeah.
Why do we continue to go through this struggle just to get to the same conclusion?
Because it's goals, and we're goal set oriented. And if your goal was to have something you always wanted, or your goal is to be that 1%, or the perception is reality. You see all these successful people on Instagram showing yachts and Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and you think that you need to elevate to that level with them. When in reality, once you've done it, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's cool. Now what? And so there's always just levels and levels, and, forced into losing everything. Yeah. And it takes a lot of humility just to come in and even speak about, I filed bankruptcy, or I didn't. Well, I'm on the brink of it. Moved in with my mom.
Right.
Divorce. Lost fucking everything. It's a newfound outlook, and so things are going to change. And I'm in a much different position now, and that's a good place to be, man. When you've got a clean slate, and you can now rebuild something on a foundation that you want to be a part of. Like, for instance, looking at evaluations of companies similar to Redline, where we were in manufacturing and fulfillment, but an e-commerce platform. If we were at a 7.8x EBITDA, the earnings before interest, deficit, taxes, and assets, our valuation caps because of how much infrastructure had to become involved. It would have took me a long time to ever hit billionaire status.
Yeah.
Whereas when I first started the company, I was because I was just naive and didn't know. Man, we're going to hit this shit in no time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but then you really start to look at what's market capitalization rates, and how much of a growth opportunity is this? And then what are the valuations? So now I'm looking at software. Right. And so ShopMail technology company that I'm building, where it's personalization made easy, server-side rendering, images and charts and data, and that's rendered. So if you open an email, let's say I send it to you on Black Friday extended, so Saturday you open it, the messaging changes, even though it's the same email, or critical alerts. So it's notifications of maybe it's low inventory, or for instance, maybe I work with Expedia and a flight changes because of the weather.
Right.
Now, an email that I sent 2 weeks ago now has different messaging and copy and call to action buttons that are different. And so, but you look at, there is no EBITDA, it's market cap.
Right.
And it's, look at your growth versus churn, and you're able to grow so much bigger. You look at billionaires, and most of them are in the software and tech industry. And so I was looking at things a lot different now that I kind of have a clean slate. Like, what do I enjoy doing? I enjoy challenges. I enjoy growth and disruptive things, similar to bold and bad. And yeah, it just gives you that level playing field if I can reset without any boundaries or hurdles to go over. So,
Yeah. So nowadays, really what do your days look like now? Now that you don't have hundreds of staff members, 130,000 square feet of warehouse, what do you spend your time on?
So I do consulting and advisory work for a few clients, and then most of those, so 3 right now, and then I do some like one-off stuff. So if somebody's having an issue with something, I'll go in and kind of look at areas of opportunity for them. But predominantly just advisory and consulting while I'm working on the development side of ShopMill.
Yeah, nice. And then, I'm kind of going to roll
and
in.
Fishing.
And fishing, yeah, plenty of fishing, right?
Yeah.
Do you catch and release? Do you cook them? What are you doing?
No, I always catch and release. Other than like when we went deep sea fishing and stuff like that, where it's all filleted there. But there's a love for the fish, man. I don't keep them and cook them. So it's mostly bass fishing.
Yeah.
So
cool. Well, final questions here. Firstly, for the entrepreneurs who are listening to this, and maybe they're going through a wall of just problem, or they've been losing so long they forget what winning looks like. What would you tell this person?
Well, I'd first off assess like why are you in this position? What pushes you further? And so a lot of times like people give up when their why isn't strong enough. And so if you're going through a hard time, I'd love for you to embrace it. And remember that if you got through this, you can get through so much more, and you'll use that in the future. I know it's hard to hear right now, but like when COVID happened, we had no clue. The state, Alabama, was looking at shutting down companies similar to like mine. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't have a contingency. Nobody knew what was going to happen. But we just kept going. We kept fighting, and it was one of our best years. And similar to like we had another near bankruptcy failure where we had the best fourth quarter we had previously by almost 2.5, 3 times in revenue. But our main nitrogen system failed, and it was something outside of our control. We had 6 months, bought it brand new, 6 months old, and it basically converts the air we're breathing into nitrogen, and it uses high chamber tanks and low chamber tanks, a generator, like 7 different things to make it work. Anyways, it failed. It caused significant delays, and it turned into like that mindset of like, look, we got past this, and the news was coming out every 2-3 days. We had 22 different attorney general reaching out and inquiring on behalf, because we're talking 100,000 orders, 98,000 orders or so that we were behind on. And, but we did everything we possibly could. But I use that as kind of like a milestone or a benchmark when I was up against the wall and I felt like all hell is breaking loose. I use that as that benchmarker to say, this isn't as bad as that. We could get past it.
Yeah.
And so if it's a really challenging time for you right now, lean into it, because that's where you learn the most. We talked about at the beginning of this episode, like this is, we don't learn from success, if you will. The best learning lessons are from failures and something that didn't work or didn't work out the way that you intended it to work. But your why should be big enough to propel you past anything and give it your all, 100%. Sink or swim.
This is an interesting topic because your why, it's something that's said over and over and over again in entrepreneurship. And this is something I've been pondering a lot recently too. First off, what is your why?
Well, I think inner peace is very important. I also think that, we had a mission statement with Redline. It was people over profit. And I think that doing right by people and just having integrity in general is a core value that aligns with kind of my why of what I want to get involved with, if that makes sense. And my why is obviously my children, spending more and more time with them. I've spent more time the past 2 years, and I probably did the first 5 years of them because of spending so much time at Redline. And that's a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And I, subconsciously you're thinking, well, I'm doing it for them. And I wasn't doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm doing it for them as well. But what am I taking away from them?
Yeah.
They don't get to know their dad growing up, but now they do. And so moving forward, there's the why is just shifted to being intentional with time more.
No, that's a very good point, because I think mine is kind of coming to a similar conclusion to where I think a why has much less become a destination or an outcome and become much more of a standard, or what do I want to be? How do I want to act? Mm-hmm. Because I had asked myself this, I think it was about a year and a half ago or maybe 2 years ago, that I was thinking about this idea of why, right? Going through a hard time, you naturally go, I got to think about my why, because it's what every entrepreneur tells me to do. And so, when it started Heman, the idea was like, my why was anti-human trafficking. And that was why I did everything I did. But then I was driving one day and I had to ask myself the question. I was like, if human trafficking didn't exist, would I still be doing what I'm doing? And I would, because it's just who I am.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, then if that's true, then it cannot be my why. And so that led to this kind of idea of like, well, then what is a why? Is it, is it time with kids, or is it this? And then I think that really led to the next thing of like, for the longest time, I said my biggest fear in life is looking, missed opportunity or missed potential was my biggest fear in life. But then I eventually had to ask myself, is there ever a moment that I'm going to reach that I'm going to say I have no potential?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then I'm never going to achieve that target, and I'm always going to be disappointed, because there's always going to be more that I could grow into, learn, or be better at, or whatever. And so then that's a terrible goal. And so I think a lot of my life in the transition of like, oh, I deserve happiness, oh, I want to be actually happy, has become this, well, who do I just want to be every day? Like how would this person think, or how would this person respond to bad things, or how would this person be as a partner or a loved one or a friend or a leader? Then that started to become of like, oh, that starts to become my why of like, it's a behavior that I carry consistently. So been an interesting one. I'm glad that we're similar here.
Yeah. So what is your now newfound why?
I think a lot of that comes down to that standard. So like when it comes to leadership side, I also had to ask myself at one point of just in business, you get backstabbed over and over and over again, or just trust that was just not carried through. And I had to ask myself of like, do I want to be known as the mentor or the business owner, like the great business owner or a great mentor? And ironically, I came down to it and I was like, I'd actually rather be the business mentor or the mentor, that when people look back at me, I wasn't cold. I wasn't just all logic, all money, all profit. I would rather be the guy who, even though he continues to get punched in the face or stabbed in the back, he's still generous to the next person, still pours into the next employee or whoever it is. And so as a leader, that's what I want to be. I want to be someone that when they look back on their experience with me, they say I'm a better human because of that person. When it comes to a future spouse or a loved one or a partner, that idea of true servant love and true just going out of, and something I wasn't good at in the past, of like going out of my way to plan special things that they don't know about to make them feel special. Traveling is a big thing for me now. Getting to really start seeing the world. Just spent 2 weeks in Egypt, and so that's a really big part of my life of, man, understanding that there's this quote of like, living life without traveling is like trying to read a book with only reading one chapter. And so for me, it's like, man, there's so many chapters out there. I want to go explore them and learn them. And then health, physically, taking care of it. Not because necessarily of what I think other people's standards are, but just of me, of like, I want my external body to represent what I feel like I am internally.
Right.
And for most of my life, it was not that. And I'm not there yet, but I'm pretty dang close. And so that's the new part of like, I want my external to represent what I feel like internally.
Yeah.
So
love that.
Yeah.
Wow. But you've done a hell of a job, and I've known you for 4 or 5 years now, and I've seen an incredible transformation. I'm proud to call you a close friend of mine, and excited to see what happens in the future.
Dude, absolutely. Thanks for coming in. Bro, how can people follow you, keep up to date on your new ventures, on things that are going on in your life?
Yeah, so you can go to colinwayne.com, all my social medias there. Then ShopMail will be coming soon. We'll focus heavily into like the email marketing side and server-side rendering, but shopmail.io will be that website.
Amazing. Dude, thanks for coming in. It's been
Thanks
good.
for having me. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much for watching another episode of the Bad Marketing Podcast. I hope you got immense value from it. And if you did, all we ask of you is that you share this with a friend that you think could find this very valuable. And depending on the platform that you're watching or listening to this on, please like, subscribe, or rate the podcast as best as possible. It really means a lot to us. We pour so much money, time, and effort into getting these guests here, filming all this, editing it, all for free, just to give you free value. And all we ask in return is that you just share this with people, you give it a positive review, so that we can continue to reach more people and impact more lives with all this effort that we're putting in. With that being said, thanks so much for tuning into the episode, and I look forward to continue to provide you more valuable content moving forward on the Bad Marketing Podcast. Make sure you subscribe.